I wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started, and that is I want you to know that we're going to be recording this training. It'll go up to our YouTube so you can take a second look at it or share it with other colleagues. Also, please remain muted throughout this, this training. At the end, we'll open it up to questions and you can unmute then to ask your questions. In the meantime, if you would put your chats or your questions in the chat, and please direct the questions to everybody that's hosting the meeting so that we can all have a crack at them. It's much easier for us to manage. And lastly, I would like to introduce Keesman Tramer. He's our membership supervisor, and he's going to tell you a little bit about our program and our presenter.
Perfect. Thank you, Peggy. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad that you could join us this morning. The training this morning is actually for everybody, whether you taken the M1 training or not. This training is still for you. This is really just a more, I would say, intimate training session. And so you can feel free to ask questions. We've all been using the new M1 system for over a week now, so I'm pretty sure that you have some questions, right? And so today, in an effort to provide you with the best training possible, we brought in the best trainer for you. As you know, our trainer for today is DeRosa from NAR. I've actually known Chris for over 20 years. She is definitely my go-to person. So I appreciate her taking the time out of her busy schedule just to be with us today. So this morning, the goal is to make sure that you and your staff know how to navigate your way through the new M1 system. And this includes, managing your members and office records, how to confirm if your financial records were uploaded successfully, or how to add secondary members to the new M1 system. And so those are just some basic things that we should be able to do in the new M1 system. I know Chris is going to cover some other important things as well during the training session. So again, we will be recording this session. So we will make the recorded version available to all associations after the training session is over today. And so at this time, I am going to turn it over to the best trainer at NAR, DeRosa.
Thank you very much, Keesman, and very happy to be here today. A little sad that I couldn't make it out to California last year as originally scheduled, but I am learning as we go along the virtualness of this. Just a really quick, this is I've been getting this a lot, FAQ. So M1 is the new version of the old NRDS screens. For all of those of you with AMSs like a Rapatoni, a Ramco, an MMSI, a Navica, a Lamps, a Growth Zone, I'm going to apologize to any that I forgot. Nothing has changed on their end, so they still go along normally. Later, we've started testing with them some more modern back-end communication, but for those of you with an AMS, I just want you to know what we've moved are the online screen parts. So now I'm going to do my share screen. This one always, I'm so always scared to do this in Zoom, but so yell out if you don't see it. And a shout out to Donna at Amador County, because I'm going to use some of her screens as the examples. But not to worry, I'm not going to actually, do anything for real. I also have a test system up as well. Just a few things I want to point out on the home page where we have received a lot of questions from folks. And again, we've never had a home page before, so this is kind of cool. I'm going to scroll down a little bit because I want to point out a section to you. We are moving the NRDS online screens in phases. So we've done phase 1, that was all the member and office information. Phase 2, which will come sometime this summer, will move the rest. So still in NRDS is batch refresh, code of ethics reports, find an association, daily changes, the online member application. So we have these tiles right here on the home page that will take you to those functions. They haven't gone away. We've just moved them into tiles. So what I want to start with is the tile called Find an Association. You simply click that from your homepage, and boy, doesn't this look familiar, because this is still in the NRDS design, if you will, and works the same way as it always has. I always like to start by just choosing a state association so I can see all the local boards. And then I just click on that local. And again, if it's your association, that change link is still there. You can still view your leadership information, members' offices, and the counts are still there. So here I can see my live counts from the database because this database is still the same. So I just want to point out to you that there is still, a place to get this function starting from the M1 homepage. And just a quick thing on the association record, we do ask if you can please keep this up to date as you have changes, because at the national level, our members are the state and local associations. So we want to be able to communicate with you correctly, have the correct place to mail things, know who your AE is. Also, we want to know who, I'm going to click the leadership, who your leadership is, so we can get the right information to them. So again, just be sure that you keep this up to date. And as I mentioned, the other place you can come to look here are the counts, and these are live. So if Amador County was in the office and just added a new member and I refreshed my screen, this number would change. So that's still true with the association. Now, when you go to one of these NRDS screens that are still in NRDS, it will open a tab at the top of your browser. But if you just click the M1 tab, you'll get back to the M1 screen. So again, just keep in mind, we haven't moved everything yet, but you will find tiles for those on the homepage. The other thing I want to point out here on the homepage is we get questions from associations. I need to pull up a list of my members. I don't want to do a search for a particular person. I just need all my own members. So we do have a tile for that on the homepage. That's the one called Search Member. If you click that, you'll see how here in the association box, it knows I'm logged in as Amador County, and it automatically zeroes in on just my association. So that's a quick shortcut if you want to get to just your association. And again, with these filters, you can narrow it down by status. Maybe I just want my active members. By type, maybe I just want my active Realtor members. So you can keep narrowing it down. Anytime I want back to the original list on the left, I have to clear filters or it will hang on to the last search that I did. So just going back to the home page here by clicking the logo, that's what this tile is for. This tile is pre-programmed with the association for which you're the POE. Great way to get a quick list. Other than that, up here at the top, there's this little drop down, and this is a free form search, very similar to how you might search in Google. So this does take a little getting used to. I can search by member or office, and I do have to tell the database what I'm looking for, and I'll say member. And I want to show you a few different ways you can do that up here in this text box. Sometimes you already know the member's ID, so you can just type that in, hit the magnifying glass icon over here, click on it, and it takes you right to the member. Sometimes you know the member's license number. So again, I come up to the top text box, I make sure I've picked member, I put in the license number, and I click and I get right to that member. Now, sometimes I might not know either of those and I have to search by name. And this is where you need to be careful because again, it's sort of this modern free-form search. You have to put in the first name, then you need this "and" in all caps, and then the last name. If you don't do that, the search will return every record with Tara in it and every record with Morla in it. So when you want to get specific on the first and last name, please include "and." And if I click the magnifying glass, I have one person whose name meets that criteria. Now, let's say I wasn't sure how Tara spelled her last name. I knew it was M-O-R something. You can use a wildcard in these searches. Tara and M-O-R something. An asterisk means I know it begins with M-O-R. I'm not sure on the rest of the spelling. I click and it just so happens in the database, there's only one person who has that first and last name starts with. So please be sure to do that. One other search I want to show you here. Now, as I said, I'm in as Amador County. Well, let's say I need a list of all the members in another association. So let me tell you a little bit about this. Choose member here at the drop-down, and you do need to use double quotes when you're doing an association. Now, I don't need to do the whole Association of Realtors or Board of Realtors. If I get enough in there, like Central Valley, you know, I know what the name of the association is or what it starts with, and click that magnifying glass. See how it automatically auto-fills this for me so that I'm getting just all the people with the Central Valley Association. So again, if you come up to the top, please remember the double quotes when you're looking for an association. And I put in Sacramento. Now here, I am going to include the word association, because what if there are people whose name is Sacramento or offices named Sacramento? So again, if I at least get the word association in there, or board, and I'm sure you guys know, what the name of your associations are. That's how you can pull up a list of everybody in an association that is not yours, that you're not the POE for. Member, double quotes, and do get the at least beginning part of the association name in there. Now, let's say I bring up one of my own members, and I'm going to do member ID because I happen to know my member's member ID. Once you do that, if you click the member ID link, always pay attention up here to the top to this string of links, because that will tell you right away if it's your member or not. If you do not see edit, it is not your primary or secondary member. You can certainly view it like you did in NRDS. I can look at Tara's member information, office, license, all of that. But if you say, wow, I don't see an edit member link, other than perhaps you didn't log in with your POE credentials, what it means is that person is not your primary or secondary. Now you will see transfer member on any member you pull up, because of course you can transfer a member from any other association to your own. That policy is still in place. So I'm going to click edit, and when it turns a dark purple, then I know I'm in the right place and I can make changes. Now, as I said, I'm really an Amador County's member, so I'm not going to actually change anything. But I want to talk to you again, some frequently asked questions we've received on this whole idea of accordions. I've had people call or email me, Chris, hey, where do I find the certifications, or where do I go to see, the education or designations? They've all been turned into these sections we call accordions. So take a look. You'll see this accordion for secondary is where you will view the member's secondary, if any, add a secondary, or change a secondary. This accordion for code of ethics is where you can add and view code of ethics courses. Member dues payments. In NRDS, we call that financials. Same thing, we've just given it a new name. Here's where you'll find the member certifications, if they have any, designations, languages, military service, regional MLSs. So it's all the same data that was in NRDS, but it's been reorganized to make it easier to find, but also easier to do some validations. And I'm going to show you that with the Code of Ethics. So I've pulled up a member. I'm going to open up the Code of Ethics accordion, and I see this member currently has one, right, for cycle 5. If you ever add one by mistake, if it's yours, you can always delete it. But I want to show you the add feature because we've been able to put some really nice validations in there. So once you find the member and you've opened up the Code of Ethics accordion, you can see if they currently have any. You would click on the right side, this little plus sign next to Add Code of Ethics. And I want to show you a few things that we've done. For our POEs who had to manually enter a code of ethics, let's say this member did not take it online at NAR.Realtor, which adds it for you. At this point, they were like, oh my gosh, what's that group code, course code? Does anybody remember the course number? Because if none of those were correct, your reports wouldn't work. So I want to show you what we've done that's new. We now have a field called year taken. Oh, that's pretty easy. Okay, they took it in 2021. I also have a drop down for cycle. We've listed them along with their date range. Yes, Tara is taking cycle 6. As soon as you choose those 2 fields, I want you to notice it fills in course code and course number for you. You don't have to worry about remembering. And if I had come here to add a code of ethics course for Tara because she took the new member course, which has a different set of course codes and course numbers, I would go to this little on-off toggle switch for new member course. I would click to turn it on. It knows she's a new member. It knows the course code. It knows the course number. So we're saving you all this time by having this all validated for you. Again, because we've put Code of Ethics in its own separate section, it can have its own rules. Now, of course, I'm not going to really add this Code of Ethics course for Tara, but if I was ready to, I would click Add Code of Ethics. I'm simply going to click the back button to get out of that section. So that,
may I
yes.
interject really shortly? I'm so sorry. We actually have 2 questions kind of regarding the Code of Ethics. Would you
Oh,
mind
certainly.
answering those really quickly? Perfect, thank you. So actually the first one, someone mentioned, I guess, the delete feature for removing a bad COE record hasn't been working. Are you aware of the issue?
You can only delete the ones you put in. So if this member took it out on NAR.Realtor and it was NAR.Realtor who added it, you wouldn't be able to delete it yourself. You'd have to get a hold of the NERDS help desk. So if I click on this record to expand it and take a look at it, I can see that Amador did enter this one, but it came from NAR online, right? And that was the same in NERD. So if it came from the NAR online course, you do still need to get in touch with us if they happen to take the wrong course out online.
Great, thank you. And I guess the other question is, could you just go over where it shows the date that they took the COE?
Certainly. So if I click the add button again, right, you see here the field course completion date. Now, when they take that course online, it does fill that in automatically when it adds the record. If you're adding it manually, we do ask you to please fill in course completion date. In fact, in a few months, we'll make it required once folks get used to this, because the member on NAR.Realtor can now view in their profile the history of their Code of Ethics courses, and they would like to see the date they completed it. So not required at the moment if you're adding it manually, but we do ask right here, please do fill that in. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is
Chris,
another.
before you move on, sorry,
I'm sorry.
Before you move on, sorry, this is Peggy. There's a couple of other questions that I can see. The first one is a secondary part from Ashley, that the record that she cannot change was created by their association. And Ashley, I'm going to say that you should contact NAR separately offline on that one. Another question from a little farther back when you were doing searches, Scott would like to know if you're able to search by your association ID number.
You should be able to. Again, the first thing I would do, right, is from this home page, I would click this search member because it automatically does that for you. But if I come up here, I'm going to start back from the home page, make sure I have member here. We're going to try it. My only fear is it might bring up everybody who has those 4 numbers in their member ID field. Right? And it could be somebody who started with you and transferred. If that's true, if I start with this 1500, I would then, when I get my 491 results, come to this association box and put in my association number. And then I'm telling the computer I really mean 1500 as an association ID. So yes, you can at the top put it in, but please be aware if there's somebody with that in their member ID, you may go, gosh, why did I just get somebody from Central Valley?
Great, thanks, Chris. And then one other question from Beth. Are there options for printing out any of the information that you went over by category?
And am I to assume that meant printing out the Code of Ethics report?
I'm not sure. Beth, do you want to chime in real quick?
Yes, I like to print out like the informational sheet so I can put it in my file that shows when I've made a transfer or I've added somebody where I can see the officer with just a kind of quick review by category if I needed to print something, just so I have it as a correction that was made.
Yeah, in fact, what you can do, and remember when you first bring up that member, right, there we have all these accordions. What I do is I will click on the link right up here. Let me go back and collapse it. Remember, it starts with all these accordions. I use this little link in the top right called Expand All, so I can open the entire member record all at once. And then I just go to my browser, right? And I just print. So you can still do a print like you did in NERDS, but with these accordions, just please remember to expand all first so you can print out the entire member record.
Yeah, I was having trouble the other day trying to get it printed out. I couldn't get it would only give me a portion of the print field. So I was
just make sure you do that little expand all first, because I do this constantly for stuff I need for e-commerce. So I do expand all, and then I happen to use Chrome. I choose print, and it will print the entire thing out for me.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what I want to move on to now is the financial record. So again, I'm going to start back on the home page. I'm going to use this search tile, so that way it limits it to just Amador County. I just want my active status, type Realtor. And by the way, this is kind of cool. I'm going to click on the first name, column header, and it sorts it for me. Or I could sort it by member ID, or I could sort it by office. So this is something we didn't have in NERDS. You can do this sort. So I've pulled up this active member, and I'm going to show you the add financial for both your primary and your secondary members, because that's a little different. Again, remember when you pull up your member, primary or secondary, you'll see edit member. Very important that you click that to turn it this dark purple before you move on, or you won't be able to make any changes. So I'm going to scroll down. I see Stephanie. I can take a quick look. Is this the person I'm looking for? Yes, it is. And I'm going to get down to the accordion called member dues payments. This was the old NERDS financial. If I open up this accordion, I can see all of her dues payments. And here's the nice thing. Everyone always asked us for this in NERDS, and we have it in M1 now. You can sort this list. So if I click on the billing year header, I can sort oldest to newest or newest to oldest. So especially if you have a bunch of them, this way you can sort them so they're all in order for you. You can click on any one of them to view in its entirety, right? And they're the same fields that they were in NRDS: payment type, payment amount, dues paid, billing year, etc. Also, since this payment came from e-commerce, I can also view the e-commerce, the EC control number right here. Didn't be able to used to do that. So I'm going to hit the back button to get back to Stephanie's record. I want to click edit. And again, I'm in for real, so I'm not going to actually add one for this person. But when you come here again, if you're adding these by hand, most of our associations, either they use our invoicing templates, which adds these for you, or you have an AMS and they're adding them for you. But if you need to, you can come here, member dues payment, and click this little plus sign to add. And the fields are the same as you're used to. And here, remember, I'm in as Amador County. I have pulled up one of my primary members. So when I click on payment type, again, it's the same as in NRDS. These are coming from e-commerce. The difference is we now sort them. So the newest ones are always on the top, which is very nice. But again, I'm not really going to add this, but billing year, amount, paid date, all of this is the same that it was. And when you're done, you have your add dues payment at the bottom. I want to show you something. I got this question from, I think, 3 boards in California the other day about trying to add a dues payment for a secondary member. So I'm heading back up here to choose record member, and I happen to already have the member ID of someone who has secondary membership with Amador County. So I'm going to pull up that person. Deborah Penny, I can see her primary is Southland. Click on her member ID. And because I am her secondary association, I do get to see the edit member link. And I'll click that so it turns a dark purple. And head down to member dues payments. And she has quite a few of them. I want to point something out to you when you go to add a dues payment. So again, I will click on the little plus sign here. What this local board discovered when they clicked payment type was, these aren't our payment types. What happened? These aren't the ones we use. Because when you come here, it defaults to Deborah's primary association and their payment types. So as a secondary association, please come to Billing Association ID, click the drop down. It's smart enough to know what other boards Deborah belongs to. Choose your board. And when you do, the payment types will now be the payment types for your association and not Deborah's primary. So that's the trick to remember. When you're here to add a financial record to one of your secondary members, please be sure to come to Billing Association, drop down, find your association and select that so that you're seeing your payment types. And again, other than that, these fields are exactly the same as they were in NRDS, and you would just simply add that those dues payment financial records when you're done.
Chris, we have a question from Lisa asking if there's a way that they can sort to get a list of paid and unpaid members for 2021.
So NRDS and now M1 is not an accounting system, right? So we don't have accounting reports, but if you use the invoice template in e-commerce, you can run what's called a billing notice test to get a list of folks who haven't paid, which means there's no, M1 financial record. If you're an AMS, on the e-commerce menu, there's a reconcile report. Again, that will show you the people who have paid. You have to then link it to your AMS reports to get the not paid, because that's really an accounting type report. But also, and I'm going to head back to the homepage real quick here. Don't forget, excuse me, we still have batch refresh. We haven't moved that over yet. And that will give you a data extract of everything you have in the database. You just need to be familiar with Excel, right? To put it in there and do your sorts and selects to get it down to what you're looking for. So there's no true accounting reports in here because it's not an AR system, but there are ways to get that kind of information out of the e-commerce and batch refresh.
Chris, thank you. I have two more questions. One is, are you able to export the active member list?
So again, right now, because we have not moved batch refresh to M1, that's the way to get a data extract. Our plans for batch refresh, again, later this year, because this is a complicated one to move, is to, in addition for it to be a total data extract, which is what states need and AMSs need, is to also include some additional questions there so that the POE can say, yeah, but just my active or just my realtor, to make it a much smaller list. And then you would put it in Excel. So we have plans to let you do that right now. You have to get the whole thing via batch refresh and use your own Excel tools to get it down to what you like.
Thank you. And then one last question for now. If someone wanted to print a list of active members and it comes up by NRDS number, how can they change that to print it in alpha order by last name?
Sure. So I'm going to click this search member box again, just so I can get a whole bunch of members here for Amador. The first thing I would do is narrow it down, right? I probably want just my active and maybe just my realtor. So remember, you can use these filters to narrow it down. Now I have my results, 175. If I want it in alpha order, I head to the column name, full name, click on it, and notice now it's Abercrombie, Augustin, Allen, Baker, etc. So when you get your list, use these column headers to click on them. Maybe I want it from Z to A. I click on it again, and the top is Zwig, Zulem, Woolsey, etc. So use these column headers to click on to sort by any of these fields.
Terrific. Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chris, I just want to add to that. So when it comes to running the batch refresh, when the associations receive the file, because it's in a raw data file, there are no header rows. And so what I just want to mention to the associations, I can provide you with a template for your financial record. So when you request the financial file, because most associations want to see a list of all of their members where there's a dues payment or dues record for 2021. And so as I was listening to Chris, I think the easiest way to get that information from the system is actually doing a refresh. And so if I provide you with the template, what you can do is once you receive that file from NRDS, you can actually copy and paste it into the Excel template. And then you can sort and get rid of all of the information that you don't need, and you can just focus on the 2021 data. So I just wanted to mention that.
Perfect, Kiesman, thank you. And to add to that, when we do get batch refresh over in M1, we will be including an additional selection asking, do you want column headers, yes or no?
Beautiful.
Right? Because AMSs want raw data extract, no column headers, no fluffy stuff, nothing. But this way, there'll be a question so the POE can say, yes, I do want column headers.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris.
Sure. So just a couple other things to talk about here on member. Again, I'm going to pull up a member here. This is one of my members, so I'm going to click on edit. And I talked about how we took code of ethics out of the generic education record so we could do those kind of cool validations. I also want to show you one more accordion here, languages. This used to sit within the demographics record. So again, we couldn't do too many fancy things with it. But if I open this accordion and I'm going to click on the plus sign to add a language. In NRDS, you had to have memorized codes to mean a certain language. Again, we can now take advantage of validation. It is now a drop down with the language spelled out. So we really encourage our POEs to use this because we do display it on NAR.Realtor, where members are searching other members. They can search by language, and on Realtor.com, where consumers are hanging out. And when it used to be kind of hidden almost in the demographic record and you had to know the codes, it wasn't used that often. But now that we've made it much easier, we really encourage you to use this field now that you don't have to memorize code. So you'll find that throughout M1. I'm going to hit the back button. Maybe you'd like to track the member's military service. Well, it was in NRDS demographic, but codes, nobody used it. So again, we've really tried to make it easier throughout these sections that you can pick and choose without having to memorize any codes.
Chris, one more question before you move on.
Sure.
Is there a way to narrow down a name search for all associations when it's a common name, for instance, like a John Smith?
Not really, because again, we went with that whole Google thing, right? So you have to start with John and Smith, and then I hit the little magnifying glass. So I have 264 results. Now I can narrow it down. Let's say I know the John Smith I'm looking for is in Long Island, New York, right? If I use association, now I've narrowed it down to just John Smiths from Long Island. But the whole point of this search up at the top is really to make it so freeform you can type anything in. And then the idea of these filters, once you get there, is to, and I'm going to clear filters, go back to 264 results, and maybe here in state, just choose Arkansas. I just want the John Smiths in Arkansas. So you do have to start up here with a very general search and then use these filters to narrow it down.
Great, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next thing I want to move on to, and I'm going to switch screens because I definitely do not want to do anything accidentally to Amador's real members. So I'm now in our test system as a test POE. Yell out if my screen share didn't work. But I want to talk about where I think, in addition to how to search for a member or office, the biggest change, I think, has come about with add member. Now, remember, if you have an AMS and you're adding members via your Ramco, Rapatoni Growth Zone, IMIS, MMSI, Navica, I'm apologizing to who I forgot, that hasn't changed. But if you're online, it has. So I'm going to come over here, take action, add member. And I want to show you, the fields will look the same, but we have a lot more validations in here, because it was interesting when we did our 1.5 years of focus groups and interviews with POEs. It wasn't so much about, hey, can you move the member join date over to the other column? It was more about how can we ensure this data is cleaner and more accurate? And that's what you're going to see a lot of in M1. I'm going to just start here. I just need to put in a name. I'll just say Ann Smith, just so I can show you some of these new features. First of all, member ID. I'm going to assign her a member ID. And as soon as I hit tab, I get a warning, right? So I know immediately this member ID has already been used. I don't have to wait till the end when I click add. So let me just change it up a bit. And now I want to show you something. In NRDS, we always had difficulties because there's certain fields that are required only when the member type was Realtor, Realtor Associate. But we had no way to show you that live in real time on the screen. We do now. So here I am at member type. I'm going to choose, and you'll notice right now the license fields have no asterisks for required. As soon as I choose Realtor, those asterisks appear. If I were adding a local affiliate member, those asterisks would not appear. So we can now tell you in real time by the member type you've selected if a field is required or not. I'm going to obviously choose active. Date fields, you can still hand type them in, but we've given you calendars, right? So I'll say, okay, her join date's February 2nd. Now, I do not have all 125,000 office IDs memorized. So for the office ID, I have this little lookup, find office. And I'm going to say I'm looking for an office in New York because in the test system I happen to be in as a New York board. Now I could narrow it down by city and name and the DR's name, but I'll just keep it at New York and click search. And I want to show you something here. Yes, we are bringing back inactive offices. You can't choose it, but I didn't want someone to keep searching for at-home builders, not find it, think something was broken because they weren't aware that office was inactive. So I will show them all to you, but you do need to choose an active office. So I'll just choose this one, click choose, it auto-fills it. And here is something new. And again, this is for our online users. We used to have a devil of a time finding duplicates because we do use license number. And let's say Arkansas, their licenses are letter, hyphen, 3 numbers. If a POE put in letter, 3 numbers with no hyphen, that's different than 2 letters, a hyphen, and 3 numbers. To a computer, those are 2 different license numbers. So we thought, gosh, how can we get our POEs to stick to the format of their DPR when it comes to licenses? So we've added a new field online asking you which state issued the real estate license. And because it doesn't matter where Ann's office is located, her office could be in Kansas, she could have a license from Missouri. So I'm going to say, again, because I'm in as New York, I'm going to say the state of New York issued this real estate license. Now I'm going to come here to the license number field and I'm going to put in AB 45. And as soon as I tab, it's going to say no, because the system now knows in the state of New York, their DPR issues real estate licenses that are 11 digits long. So AB whatever is not going to work. The other thing, now this is not live yet, so you guys won't see it when you're in the real M1, but we're playing around with connections to different states, Department of Licensing, Regulation, whatever they call it, to see if they can set it up to send a suggestion. So I'm just going to close this right now, not take this suggestion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There we go. And it will warn me if I'm doing a duplicate right then and there, which is great. The other thing I want to show you is here in the contact information. As you know, for realtors and realtor associates, home address is required. So let me show you this one. I'm going to say they live, I'm just going to fake it here with NAR's office address. You put in the street, you put in the zip code, and when you click tab, we're also now connected to the US Post Office. They will figure out the city and the state and the zip +4 or +6 for you. Now, living in Chicago, I will be the first to tell you the US Post Office is not perfect. If you don't like their suggestion, click cancel and type it in yourself, or click choose, and it auto-fills that for you. And one other big change has to do with email. It's still required for realtor associates. In NERDS, we called it email address. Here we call it business email, but the same field. It's the same thing. Another big ask we got, especially from states, but also many local boards, is they were having a problem when they would email dues notices, calls to action. I talked to Alaska last week. They're now doing virtual voting online because of the pandemic. And all of these states and boards said, boy, we have to make sure that email goes to the right person, especially with confidential stuff or director voting. And they said, we have to stop this for members all having WeSell@WeSell.com as an email address. So from this point forward, when you add a new member, Realtor Associate, because email is required, it must be unique, and it will stop you when you click add if it's not. So you will, from your new members, have to get a unique email address. Now we've put on the screen this non-required field called shared email, in case, we do want to store WeSell@WeSell.com, but just please be aware, if they give you an email address that's already in some other member's record, when you click add member, you will be stopped. You will have to get that unique email address from them. The other thing, we have not turned this on yet, but we have plans when you add a new member, that after you add that member, an email will go to that person at that email address, simply asking them to click to verify it's real. Now, we're not going to throw out your member or do anything to it. If it's your member, it stays in the database. But the future plan is for you to, when you look at your member, to be able to tell, is this email verified? Now, it could be a good email and they just never bothered to click to verify it. But at least you'll be forewarned and forearmed as to how many of your email addresses seem to be working and are real. So that's the big thing with the add member, is we've put in all these validations and checks to try and make sure right at the top that this data is correct, or as correct as it can be, and also helping you out with little lookup features, calendars, telling you whether it's required or not right up front. And also, by the way, for certain fields, they have this gray question mark. This is throughout M1. If you hover over it, it brings up the field help for that particular field. So you go, oh, okay, this is what I do with the member type field. So again, we tried to build those tools in, just like we've also built in the tools. And I'm going to head back to the real M1 here is Amador County. Under M1 help, up this top blue bar. This is where the user manual is. I've written a chapter for every function. And when you're on that screen, let's say back when I was on the member dues payment screen, there's a big question mark. If you click it, it will open this chapter right for you. I also have the newsletters here, the quick reference guides. This is a kind of a nice visual brochure, if you will, of the training that we did for everyone the last few weeks. And what's really nice is this help is searchable. If I come up to the search in the help box and say COE, click the magnifying glass, it will find every chapter, every newsletter, every quick reference guide, everything that mentions code of ethics. I'll have that help at my fingertips. So I also recommend please use the help whenever you can. So I'm going to stop here for a moment to see if there's any questions on what I've just showed you, or anything else people might have questions on.
Chris, we have 3 new questions. The first one is, how do you check or change the association leadership information like president, president-elect, and secretary?
Right. So remember, from the home page, scroll down to the Find an Association, because we haven't moved that yet. I happen to be logged in here as Amador County, so I'll bring up my own association, and this is still NERDS. So the Change Association link is still here. And when you scroll down, now NAR looks at your current officers. There's fields for future and prior if you want to fill them in, but we don't look at those. So when your officers change, pull up the association, change association, and come to these current boxes and put in the member ID of the member who is currently serving as your president, secretary, treasurer, president-elect, if you have one.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is there a difference between Realtor and Realtor Associate?
So not at the national level, right? They're all realtors, same privileges and services, same duties and obligations. But at local board bylaws, and I think it's only now just New Jersey, New York, and Florida. In their local bylaws, they do have two different classifications of membership: Realtor, Realtor Associate. Usually Realtor might be the broker, and Realtor Associate is not the broker. But when you move up to the state and national level, the two are exactly the same. And the state of California is what we call an all realtor state. So none of your bylaws have Realtor Associate.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next question. When will the click-through for office info for the individual members be available?
Right. So let me pull up a member here real quick so everybody knows what that means. If I'm currently viewing a member record, right, the office information, we will add the office ID field, which will be clickable. So it will bring up a kind of modern type of pop-up so you can view that office information. And after the meeting with the programmers today, I want to say end of March, beginning of April sometime is we'll have those links available.
Thank you. Can you be a POE for multiple associations?
Oh, definitely. In fact, the Atlanta Association in Georgia manages 8 local boards. They've sort of made it a business. So yeah, we've always had that. I have states like Missouri, Texas manages 17 local boards because they're too small to have their own staff. So yeah, that's pretty common where we have states or larger local boards managing smaller boards, and with their one POE login, they can get to the records of all the boards they manage.
Thank you. When searching for active Realtor members, is there a way to sort by join date? And if not, what's the best way to produce a list of Realtors who have been members for a certain amount of time of years?
Right. So we don't have a join date. We never did as one of the columns on the results. So what you can do is, again, our friend on the homepage, batch refresh, right? Again, we will, when we move it to M1, we'll make it a little friendlier where the file you get will have column headers and you can limit it to just your active members. Well, one of those columns is join date. So you can do it right now. You can grab batch refresh, open the member file into Excel and sort by that column and use the, for example, Kiesman was saying templates. So, you know, join date is in column BE or something. So you can do it that way. We're just have plans this summer to make batch refresh easier to use for our boards so they can make their own lists.
Perfect. Is there a way to view all members associated with an office by looking up the office?
Certainly. So again, I don't know off. So the important thing up at the top, choose record, make sure you're telling the database you're now looking at offices. You guys know office names better than I do. So I usually just put in Prudential and click the magnifying glass. You guys would know better than me how to narrow down the office name up here. But once you do, I can go, all right, I really meant all the active Prudentials in the state of California, or I could even add city to that, right, to keep narrowing it down. But up here in office, you can put in the office ID up here if you know what it is, or you can just put in the name, part of the name. Again, you guys would know better, you know, what the office names are.
Thank you. Could you explain the export option in N1, like to download a list of realtors to a spreadsheet or a CSV?
Yeah, so it's called batch refresh and it's still NRDS, right? That has not changed yet. So on the home page, batch refresh is the same one you had in NRDS. I recommend to POEs, if you want to take the file it's going to send you to put into something like Excel, always ask for tab delimited. You'll always get the offices and members, but sometimes you say, hey, I also want the financial, right? Like those dues payments or education or et cetera. And then you tell it either I'll go pick up the file when it's ready, email the URL, or take that file and just attach it to the email and send it to the POE email. That's email the file, and then click refresh now. It doesn't take long, probably 20 minutes or less. The POE gets an email with the file attached. It's zipped, so you'll have to know how to unzip. Inside is a file ending in .m. Those are your members, every member, active, inactive, terminated, and every field. Because you said I want it tab delimited, you can open that up in Excel, but then of course you'll have to do your own sorting and selecting and all of that business. This is just the raw data sitting in the database that belongs to your association.
Awesome, thank you. Part two, to being a POE for another association, how does one add themselves as a POE to another association?
So the process is, step one, I need an email from the Sunny Board of Realtors saying, hi, we're going to be taking over POE management of the Cloudy Board of Realtors. And I need an email from the Cloudy Board. Now, if their AE is gone, I need that email from the board president saying, yes, we are giving over our POE rights, and that means NRDS and e-commerce, to the Sunny Board of Realtors. We approve this. Once I get those two emails, then I just flip a switch in security. So if it was Donna, for example, here at Amador County taking over Central Valley, her login doesn't change. It's just that she would now be able to pull up members primary with Central Valley and start changing, adding, editing, etc. But yeah, it is a process. There's paperwork involved because, you know, I have to have that on file.
Thank you. If someone is putting in a new agent and they type in a license number that they know is correct and it says that it already exists in California, how can they find out who else has that license number, probably incorrectly reported, so that it can be corrected?
Certainly. So if I got that error message, I would make note of the license number. And this search up here, like office, for example, it's always there, right? So if I were in the transfer screen or the secondary screen, look up top, this up here is always here. I would go member and I would type in that license number that it was giving me an error message on. Oops, 49943. I think I typed that in okay. Yeah, there we go. And you would immediately see who it is that has that license number. Active, inactive, doesn't matter. It would tell you who already has that.
Perfect, thank you. Once you have located an office record in N1, how do you see the agents that are associated with it?
Okay, so let me bring up Prudential here again. And let's say I go, yep, let me just narrow this down, California, here it is. All right, what you don't see right now, but if you were in my test system, you would see it because we're almost done with this. I'm talking like a week or so, not months. We're adding another accordion here. So whether it's your office or not, right, it doesn't have to be. I'm in as Amador. This is not my office, but I can see the basic office info. We'll have one more accordion down here called member list, right? You click that. And it will be just like, I'm going to fake it for a moment, okay? When you click that accordion, it will open up a list of all the members in that office. So our programmer is finishing up the code. I need to test it. So I'm hoping we get that moved into production, let's say a week and a half at the worst.
Thank you. Does the office search work when there's a slash in the name, such as in Remax?
I've never tried that. Hold on, let's go to office. I don't search for offices that often. So let me do Remax. By the way, it's not case sensitive, so it doesn't care if you put it in upper or lowercase. No, all right. Oh, wait a minute, maybe double quote Remax. You can tell I'm not a big Google searcher. There we go, guys. When you're looking for something that has a special character in it, like a slash, please surround your search with these double quotes. When I did the double quotes, you see how it brought up the Remaxes that have a slash in it.
Perfect. And you know what? That's all I have. And we are at the end of our hour.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Anything else you want to add, Chris?
I would say that probably just the most frequently asked questions we get right now are on searching. So please do what I just did. Give it a try. I didn't know I could search with a slash. You don't hurt anything by searching. Just keep trying that. And really, it was all about those accordions, right? Where do I find financials? Where do I find code of ethics? Where do I add a secondary? Where do I transfer a member? Just please be assured everything is still there, just completely rearranged and rearranged to make the data be in sections that make more sense. So give it a try. You're not going to hurt anything by trying this or trying that. And then finally, I would say then just let us know. And finally, if you have an idea, the homepage, please use have an idea and tell us what you're looking for. Something new, existing, you have another suggestion. These all go into a database that I read. That's where some of the things that are coming soon I got from. So please do use that as well.
Thank you, Chris. And we're getting really great feedback in the chat, and everybody is learning lots of new things. So thank you so much for doing a special training just for us. And to all the attendees, I'll be sending up a follow-up email with a link to this on our YouTube channel. Thanks again, Chris.
Oh, and thank you guys for having me. And I got to tell you, it's so much easier to do the show and tell than try and answer your questions in an email. So I was very happy to be able to walk folks through the features that I think everybody is using the most right now. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks again.